my name is Tiffney Laing. I'm the founder of Bevy and Dave. And Bevy and Dave is an educational toy company. Well, it started out as an educational toy company, but we have expanded into books and animation and some more other things that are coming out next year. So we are now a multimedia educational company. And I established it in 2015 when I started doing the research on how to even get into the toy industry. But what made me get into it, before I even get there, was the fact that I was, understanding that the narrative of Black history just needed to change because it was just so focused on slavery and oppression, which doesn't really help children to grow, in my opinion, a very effective way that will allow them to be great contributors, right? Because when you're a young child, you are looking up to not just your parents and teachers, but you are trusting the education system. So you're trusting the textbooks and you are believing what you're learning, and it's such an important part of your development. And so while I was doing research in my doctorate program, I realized there was a lot of research that was already done before me once I got into the work of researching and seeing that children, they particularly Black children, that they achieve higher when they are exposed to cultural programs, rites of passage programs, and of course exposed to a lot of positive Black history. And that just wasn't, really available in the public school system, And so while I was doing my research, I realized I wasn't really going to change much of anything by continuing to research what has already been researched, that solutions were needed, that many people before me had already advocated for the textbooks to be changed in regards to involving more positive Black history. And so it's just been a long time coming. And so I just decided it was time for a solution. And then that's when I left the doctorate program and I decided to take out time to figure out how I can do my part to help the next generation. And future generations have much more of a positive connection to Black history. But not just Black children, right? But all children, because everyone in the classroom experiences the same information. And so it impacts the child of African ancestry more deeply, right? Because they're more connected to it in regards to that's their heritage. But then it impacts other students where it can impact, how the stereotypes continue or how people may view Black people and their role in experiences in society. And so that's why I thought it was just really, really important to do something because it's just been a very passion of mine. And my daughter, luckily, God blessed me with a daughter. And through her, I was able to see that children learn through play. As adults, sometimes we forget how we develop. And I was able to experience childhood again through her. And so children very much so learn through play. And so I knew at that point, definitely educational toys was the way to go. And so that's how I got started. And that's the short version. But yeah, so I studied a lot early in the wee mornings to find out how to get into the toy industry and how does the whole manufacturing process work and all of that. And so I had to learn a lot, but it was well worth it because a year later, I was able to launch the first product, the History Makers Puzzle Block Set in 2016. And it was well received to the point where it received awards and made Bevy and Dave an award-winning company. And so it was also recognized by the Toy Industry Association as a finalist for the Toy of the Year. And that is when I realized that I was definitely a part of the toy industry, because Bevy and Dave was in the same books as Barbie and all these, products that we're used to, Hot Wheels and all of that. So it was definitely a great experience. And so that is how we started. And so when we talk about understanding like what's available, there was no toys that teach Black history in the toy aisles, not in major retail stores. And I would even say smaller retail stores too. I will say that because the ones that I visited just didn't have that, and still don't. And so when we talk about having tools available for children, we also have to make sure that parents and educators understand how these tools matter in regards to educating the young child. And so educators are really excited about the product. Parents are too. And it helps them, right? It guides them in the process because they just don't have it. I could give you an example, and this is a very important example. When my daughter was entering kindergarten, I was taking a tour, and I wanted to go see, you know, private school and public school to determine which place, I should to take her to go to school. And so as I was touring one of the schools, it was Black History Month, just so happened to be. And the lesson for the day was on the wall about Black history on the board. And the board it says, Harriet Tubman was not born free. She was born a, and there was a blank for the child to fill in the blank. And the thing that came to my mind is one, why is that a Black history lesson? It's clear that the teachers need tools because they don't know how to seem to teach Black history outside of oppression and slavery. There's just so much more to Black history, right? There's so many contributions, so many achievements, and those stories are just not being told. And so for children to be inspired to be their best selves, to contribute great things to the world, to be, and particularly Black kids, to be excited about their heritage, you have to give them positive stories, right? It's okay to share slavery and oppression. That's part of the story, but it's not all the story. And so we need to make sure that that is balanced out. And for so long, it just hasn't been. And so Bevy and Dave Toys do that. Bevy and Toys is part of making sure that the whole story is told in a way that allows the child to see themselves in a very positive light and allows them to see themselves and their ancestors as great contributors to the world, capable of so many remarkable things. Bevy and Dave Toys, what makes it so different is that it doesn't just focus on Black history, it focuses on Black history through the lens of leadership. So we're teaching children how to be leaders. And what better stories can you learn from, right? Than those stories told in Black history, particularly because there were so many challenges. That makes those stories that much more remarkable. To accomplish anything, right? As a person of African ancestry, particularly here in the States and around the world too, but particularly here in the States, it's remarkable. And so we're having everyone to be inspired by those stories and knowing that they can achieve anything. One of the things that I would like to share too about Bevy and Dave is not just focused on Black history in the States. We're focused on global Black history. So South America is included, as well as the Caribbeans, obviously the continent of Africa, and any place where Africans and people of African ancestry have been for many years and have contributed to the development of those countries and around the world. And so that's pretty much what Bevy and Dave is really all about. Um, and my hope is that with the educational products, right, that we create, that children will be able to, that we, right, will be able to see the difference made, because I really believe the difference is in education. I mean, knowledge is power. Frederick Douglass, he talks about how it's easier, right, to build a strong man, build a strong child than to repair a broken man, and it's true. So we have to start doing it during their young years, um, while they are learning and growing and understanding what it means to be human and how to contribute their best to the world. We can't do that if we continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. We have to try different things. And that's also why Bevy and Dave have expanded from toys to also animation and publishing, because the same the same thing that has created a level of self-hate or misunderstanding amongst people of African ancestry and people who are not of African ancestry in general. When it comes to Black history, we have to use the science methods to kind of change it, right? So throughout the years, children were impacted by the fact that there were no toys that looked like them. There was no visual displays on the screen that looked like them, right? Um, the textbooks in the classroom, okay, didn't have positive information. And so how do you change that? How do you make it better? You have to use those same tools. So now we're focusing on the screen and the educational tools in the classroom, not just with toys, but through books. Because that's important. You have to diversify how children learn, because children learn through repetition. So they're going to get the toys, they're going to learn that way, they're going to read, and then they're going to also have access to the screen through animation, as well as, digital games and so forth. So it's just so important that we do our best to make sure that children have the opportunity to just live a life that's free of 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 negative um of negative, what's the word I'm looking for? It's free of just of negative thinking about themselves, right? We need children to love themselves at the earliest age possible for them to achieve. This is key, but it's done through education, not just love, but through education, because knowledge is important. And when a child um, is young, there's a few things that happen that I always talk about, right? We, our worldview, right? The children's worldview is shaped, right, by what they're seeing, what they're learning. That's going to shape their perspective. Their perspective, right, is going to influence, right? Their perception is going to influence how they see themselves and how they interact with the rest of the world. And then that boils down to whether or not you're going to achieve or not. Because if you don't feel confident in who you are, if you don't love yourself, that's going to be with you for a long time. And it's so hard to get rid of it, which is why it's important to target children at a young age with learning tools that showcase them in a beautiful light. And then children who are not of that ancestry, they're also impacted by seeing these beautiful images and becoming more well-rounded, more understanding of other ethnic groups and heritage. And now we're creating this situation, right? This beautiful experience where now everyone can appreciate what everyone has contributed to the world. We gotta stop keeping Black history limited to a people that is constantly struggling and fighting to just be accepted and to do their part in the world. We got to show how they did it regardless. We got to show how they were leaders and their behaviors and how they use their mind and their gifts to do their part regardless of the challenges. And that to me is what's so remarkable about Black history. And that's what I'm hoping to share. And so I will say that when we talk about the end result of Bevy and Dave, I would like to see the next generation truly understand that there's nothing that they can't do. I want to see them leading with confidence, loving themselves. I want to see the next generation getting along with other people of ethnic groups as true partners in the world, right? Because we're all family. Every ethnic group has done something wonderful and beautiful to contribute to this great world that we live in. We truly are humans who have been placed here to do things to make the world a better place. And we have to understand that it's not limited to just certain groups. That every group have done wonderful things. But my job for Bevy and Dave is focused on Black history because that is where the greatest need is. That is what my calling is. That is my purpose. And so that's why I choose to focus on Black history, because globally, Black people have been abused with discrimination, with racism, with oppression. And it can only stop with knowledge and understanding. And that begins at a young age. And my hope is that the parents and educators will use these tools to help them inspire their children, their grandchildren, and their great greats.